In the ever-evolving landscape of the automotive industry, a seismic shift is underway. The electric vehicle revolution, once heralded as the undisputed future of transportation, is facing an unexpected and formidable challenge. At the forefront of this tumultuous change is General Motors, a titan of the industry and an early pioneer in the EV space. Today, we find GM in a position few could have predicted, pumping the brakes on its ambitious electric dreams. This shift is not merely a corporate strategy adjustment, but a reflection of broader market realities that are forcing a re-evaluation of the entire EV paradigm. Recent market trends paint a sobering picture of the EV industry. The explosive growth that characterized the early years of electric vehicles has given way to a more tepid response from consumers. This cooling effect is not isolated to GM alone. It's a global phenomenon that's forcing automakers to reassess their strategies. Sales projections that once seemed conservative are now appearing overly optimistic, and the rapid adoption rates many had anticipated have failed to materialize. According to the International Energy Agency, global electric car sales reached almost 14 million in 2023, representing a 35% increase from 2022. While this growth is significant, it's lower than the 55% year-over-year increase seen in 2022. This deceleration suggests that the market is entering a more mature phase, where growth rates are normalizing from their initial explosive trajectory. The global electric vehicle market, valued at 291.5 billion sterling in 2023, is projected to more than double to 714.9 billion sterling by 2030. However, this growth isn't evenly distributed across all markets. China, Europe, and the United States account for around 95% of all EV sales in 2023, indicating that adoption in other regions is still lagging. General Motors in particular has been compelled to delay several key EV investments. This pivot is not just a minor setback, but a significant shift in strategy that signals deeper issues within the EV market. The company's bold plans to dominate the electric future are now being tempered by the harsh realities of consumer demand and market readiness. GM's initial ambitious EV strategy included a $35 billion investment in electric and autonomous vehicles through 2025, plans to launch 30 new EV models globally by 2025, and a goal to sell only zero-emission vehicles by 2035. However, recent developments have forced GM to recalibrate its approach. GM has pushed back the production start dates for several key EV models, including electric versions of the Chevrolet Silverado pickup truck and Equinox SUV. It's also scaled back investments, and the company has slowed the pace of EV-related capital expenditures, citing the need to balance investments with current market demand. GM is increasing its investment in hybrid technology, seeing it as a bridge between ICE vehicles and full EVs. This shift suggests a recognition that the transition to all-electric vehicles may take longer than initially anticipated. But this has raised concerns on the topic of profitability. The company has acknowledged that its EV division is not yet profitable, with CEO Mary Barra stating that GM expects its EV portfolio to be solidly profitable by 2025 instead of earlier projections. One of the most surprising developments in the EV saga is the issue of reliability. Contrary to the prevailing narrative that electric vehicles, with their simpler powertrains and fewer moving parts, would be more reliable than internal combustion engine vehicles, the reality has proven quite different. This unexpected twist is causing potential buyers to hesitate, undermining one of the key selling points of EVs. Recent studies and consumer reports have shown that EVs are, on average, less dependable than their ICE counterparts. For instance, a 2022 Consumer Reports study found that EVs had 79% more problems than ICE vehicles. This data contradicts the long-held belief that the simplicity of electric powertrains would translate to improved reliability. This is largely due to the fact that EV batteries lose capacity, affecting range and performance. This degradation can be accelerated by factors such as frequent fast charging and extreme temperatures. Some EV owners have reported significant range loss within just a few years of ownership, leading to concerns about long-term viability and resale value. Not only this, but also issues with onboard chargers and charging ports have been reported more frequently than anticipated. These problems can leave drivers stranded or unable to charge their vehicles efficiently. The complexity of EV charging systems, which must handle high voltages and currents, makes them more prone to failures than the relatively simple fuel systems of ICE vehicles. You also have to remember that there is an extremely large and complex software system that drives these cars, the brains, if you will. But the highly computerized nature of EVs makes them susceptible to software-related problems as well. These issues can range from minor inconveniences like infotainment system malfunctions to more serious problems affecting core vehicle functions. Over-the-air updates, while beneficial for adding features and fixing bugs, can sometimes introduce new problems or temporarily disable vehicle functions. Something that gets forgotten a lot, while less common than engine issues in ICE vehicles, electric motor problems can be costly and complex to repair. The specialized nature of EV powertrains often requires expert technicians, which can lead to longer repair times and higher costs. Additionally, the high torque output of electric motors can put increased stress on other drivetrain components, leading to premature wear. These reliability concerns are not just affecting individual consumers. Fleet operators, who are expected to be early adopters of EV technology, are now approaching electrification with more caution. The potential for increased downtime and higher maintenance costs is causing many to stick with tried and true ICE vehicles for now. This hesitation among fleet operators is particularly significant, as their large-scale adoptions were expected to drive down costs and improve infrastructure for all EV users. Despite significant advancements in battery technology, range anxiety remains a formidable barrier to EV adoption. This persistent fear of running out of power mid-journey continues to deter potential buyers, even as the average range of electric vehicles has increased substantially over the years. The psychological impact of range anxiety cannot be overstated. It fundamentally alters how drivers perceive and use their vehicles. The psychology behind range anxiety is complex. It's not just about the actual distance an EV can travel on a single charge. It's about the perceived freedom and flexibility that drivers feel they might lose. The idea of carefully planning every long trip around charging stops is at odds with the spontaneity many associate with car ownership. This mental shift represents a significant hurdle for many consumers accustomed to the convenience of quick refueling stops with ICE vehicles. Moreover, range anxiety is exacerbated by invisible and sometimes overlooked factors. For example, cold weather can significantly reduce EV range, sometimes by up to 40%. This dramatic reduction in colder climates means that a vehicle rated for 300 miles of range might only deliver 180 miles in winter conditions. Heat waves can also impact range, as increased air conditioning usage drains the battery more quickly. Alongside this, aggressive acceleration and high-speed driving can drain batteries faster than expected. Many EV drivers find themselves adopting a more conservative driving style to maximize range, which can be frustrating for those accustomed to more dynamic driving experiences. As with ICE vehicles, carrying heavy loads or towing can dramatically decrease range. This limitation is particularly problematic for consumers who use their vehicles for work or recreational activities that require hauling capacity. However, the impact of payload on range is often more severe in EVs compared to ICE vehicles, not to mention uneven terrain, such as on hills or mountains. These terrains can challenge even the most advanced EV powertrains. While regenerative braking helps recapture some energy on descents, the overall impact of varied topography on range can be significant. This factor can make EVs less practical in certain geographic regions. The real-world implications of these factors mean that the advertised range of an EV is often not achievable in everyday driving conditions. This discrepancy between expected and actual range further fuels range anxiety and erodes consumer confidence in EV technology. Closely related to range anxiety is the issue of charging anxiety. As the EV market grows, the lack of a robust, widespread charging infrastructure has become increasingly apparent. This shortage of charging options leaves many drivers worried about finding a place to power up when they need it most. The charging experience, far from being a simple analog to refueling an ICE vehicle, introduces a host of new concerns and complications for drivers. At the moment, there simply aren't enough charging stations to meet the growing demand, especially in rural areas and along highways. This scarcity is particularly problematic for apartment dwellers and those without access to home charging. The uneven distribution of charging stations creates charging deserts where EV ownership is impractical. Not only this, but also many existing chargers are slow, requiring hours for a full charge. While fast charging stations are becoming more common, they're still not ubiquitous. The time required for charging, even at fast charging stations, is significantly longer than refueling an ICE vehicle. This time difference can make long trips in EVs much more time-consuming and less convenient. There have even been reports of malfunctioning or out-of-service charging stations, adding to driver anxiety. Unlike gas stations, which rarely experience total outages, EV charging stations can be rendered useless by technical glitches or power issues. This unreliability means that drivers can't always count on planned charging stops being available. Also, a lack of standardization in payment methods and charging networks can make the process confusing and frustrating for users. Unlike the universal payment systems at gas pumps, EV charging often requires multiple apps, accounts, and payment methods depending on the charging network. This fragmentation adds complexity to what should be a simple process. Another cause of charging anxiety comes from concerns about whether the electrical grid can handle the increased demand of a large number of EVs on the road, especially during peak hours. The potential for brownouts or the need for managed charging during high-demand periods introduces another layer of uncertainty for EV owners. Addressing these infrastructure challenges requires massive investment and coordination between automakers, governments, and utility companies. Until a comprehensive charging network is in place, charging anxiety will remain a significant barrier to EV adoption. The chicken and egg problem of needing more EVs on the road to justify infrastructure investment, while also needing better infrastructure to encourage EV adoption, creates a challenging cycle that has proven difficult to break. Perhaps the most significant obstacle to widespread EV adoption is price. Despite years of promises about affordability, electric vehicles still command a premium over traditional cars. This price gap puts EVs out of reach for many consumers, limiting their market penetration. The higher upfront costs of EVs remain a substantial barrier, even when factoring in potential long-term savings on fuel and maintenance. One factor is battery technology. While battery costs have decreased over time, they still represent a significant portion of an EV's overall cost. The complex chemistry and manufacturing processes involved in producing high-capacity, long-lasting batteries keep prices high. Additionally, the raw materials required for battery production, such as lithium and cobalt, are subject to price fluctuations and supply chain disruptions. Alongside the high price of batteries, many EV models are produced in smaller numbers, preventing manufacturers from achieving the economies of scale that help reduce the cost in ICE vehicle production. This limited scale affects not just the vehicles themselves, but also the specialized components required for EV production. Another leading factor is that the rapid pace of EV technology advancement requires substantial ongoing R&D investment, which is reflected in vehicle prices. Automakers are constantly working to improve battery technology, charging speeds, and overall vehicle performance, and these development costs are passed on to consumers. On top of this, the need for home charging equipment adds to the total cost of EV ownership. While not as expensive as the vehicle itself, the installation of a home charging station represents an additional expense that ICE vehicle owners don't face. The price premium of EVs is particularly pronounced in the mass market segments where affordability is crucial. While luxury EVs have found a niche market, the lack of truly affordable electric options limits widespread adoption. The promise of EVs reaching price parity with ICE vehicles has been repeatedly pushed back, with some analysts now predicting it won't happen until the late 2020s or early 2030s. While government incentives have helped offset some of these costs, they're not available in all regions and are often time-limited. As these incentives phase out, the true cost of EVs becomes more apparent to consumers. The reliance on incentives also raises questions about the long-term viability of the EV market without government support. The higher purchase price of EVs is not always offset by lower operating costs, especially in regions with low fuel prices or high electricity costs. This economic reality means that for many consumers, the total cost of ownership for an EV remains higher than that of a comparable ICE vehicle, even over several years of use.